The number one thing you need to walk into fundraising with, and the mentality you need to have, is the goal is not to raise money. The goal is to return money. And what that means is like, it's fun and you get into it and you're competitive and you're like thinking about the terms and you're thinking about the people and you're getting all this like strategy around how to win fundraising. But really, if you raise more than $0 and you don't return the money to those people, you failed. You need to go in knowing that the goal is not to raise money. The goal is to give people a 10x or 100x or 1000x return on their money. That's a forcing function to be like, I'm not gonna fuck around and ask somebody for money unless I'm like dead certain that I'm gonna return it. The framing that has helped me is to walk into a pitch as if I had like a 10-page business plan, which nobody ever wants to see it. But like, if I've thought through every angle of the business as well as I can with like doing the research I've done and everything, and if you were to be like, hey Aaron, I will give you the $3 million you've asked for, but you need to execute exactly what's in this plan. Do I believe that I put forward the best possible plan I can put forward? And if the answer to that isn't yes, I shouldn't raise.
Hey Aaron, welcome to Founders and Empanadas.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what empanada are you rolling with today?
Man, I think I got a beef and I got a cheese. So I'm gonna take my trusty Lactaid to live a little, get all the good food.
All right, be careful with the cheese one.
I'll be all right.
We'll do our best. All right, let's dig in.
Cheers. We gotta get some spicy sauce to start.
Okay, Nice. How was it?
That's good, man. I've never been in this spot. It was really good.
Okay, I love it. So Aaron, I'm very excited to have you on today. We're going to do a masterclass on fundraising, and no one better to bring on than you. And before we get into the gritty of it, I'd love to share with the audience a little bit more about your story with fundraising, and specifically maybe how your storytelling has changed through the different rounds that you've raised throughout your career.
Sure. Very, very quick background to set the stage. Consulting, MBA, and then started a consumer brand in 2010. It was truly meant to be a 3-month project. I went to get my MBA to start companies, but like to me, starting a company meant like figure out a way to get a Subway franchise, spit out cash, get another franchise, go do, like a laundromat, etc. And I went to Berkeley for my MBA and I was like, oh, high-tech startups. And like, I've been around it my whole life, but I like kind of float through things and don't really pay attention, I think. And so I missed the fact that like all this was happening like in my backyard. And so I ended up starting a consumer brand in 2010, nothing high-tech, like lowest tech possible thing. And it was meant to be a 3-month project. We started making a bunch of sales. I remember calling my parents and be like, hey, I'm not going back to consulting. I'll defer for a year. I can always do it, right? And they're like, okay, like they were like going to be supportive, but I was like completely convicted on it. And a year in, decided to raise some money and was very fortunate. I had like a little bit of money from my family, from my parents, which was just like such a blessing. We'd like made a lot of sales, so it was much more like to be able to afford inventory. And then a professor who I'd been a teaching assistant for during my MBA was like, I'm all in, and he gave us an awesome investment. A year after that, I went out to raise, I think we raised like, I don't even know, man, $1 million across a couple different rounds. And then since then, I've like fundraised for a couple different tech companies. I've advised probably like 40 or 50 companies formally across like 100 different fundraising rounds. So like there's a lot of history there, like the brand side, the tech side. So happy to dive in wherever, but I've kind of seen a bunch.
I love that one a little bit more, compare and contrast the fundraising rounds with your first, non-tech traditional business to later rounds with, more VC savvy investors.
Yeah, maybe like 2 stories from the first company. So the brand was called Modify Watches. We scaled to like $1 million in sales. That's like a direct to consumer brand, like very quickly. And then like I screwed up so many things. We had too many channels. We did sports licensing. We did print on demand. We did corporate gifting. Like we did everything. A couple of things with the fundraise. One is like the first VC I ever pitched is this fund, Javelin Venture Partners, which is like awesome fund in the Bay Area. They're literally an investor in my current company, but like they were the first ones I ever formally pitched. And I remember a buddy from business school, and I was like talking about how fast we'd grown and how they should invest. And he was like the associate, right? I had met one of the founding partners, Jed, multiple times. And my buddy Richard, who was working there, I was like, dude, we've grown 500K in sales at the time, 0 marketing spend. And he's like, that's cute. If I give you $1 million and you have to spend on marketing right now, what would you do? And I was like, I have no idea. Right. And so like the big takeaway from that, I mean, it was like a appropriate punch in the face. It hurt at the time, but it was like, oh yeah, if you don't actually know what you're going to do with the money, like don't raise the money. Right. Like you should have the plan. The other story from that time that has like kind of stuck with me as I think about like fundraising was just how exhausting it was, because that was during the time where there used to be these like big angel groups, and like there are angel groups now through angel lists, and like you can go send it out and people syndicate and you can go get a bunch of money from different peoples. But this was like doctors and lawyers and XYZ people who would all put in like 10K to 25K in a company, and you would go pitch a room of 100 people. And I distinctly remember leaving a day where I'd had like a couple VCs and then like one of those. And with that, it's like 100 people, but 75% of the people aren't interested at all in what you're talking about. Probably like 75% aren't interested in any company. They're just like hanging out, right? It's social. But
Yeah.
you got to figure that out. And you're on because you're like pitching while looking at a room of 100 people. And then you like figure out the 10 people who might be interested. And then you really hone in on like the 2 people. And it's like as much focus as you can possibly give to try to raise 50K or whatever it is from the room. And I just remember being so absolutely exhausted from that. And I remember like we were living in San Francisco. My now wife, my girlfriend at the time, we went to like Monk's Kettle for dinner that night, and I ate more food. It was as if I played like 6 hours of basketball. It was everything. And I was so emotionally spent and so hungry. And I flip it to like recently we were fundraising, and it's all consuming and it's all the things. Like we can go more in depth on that. But like I slept like a baby. It was intense and it was stressful. And then the minute I turned my attention from fundraising back into our core business, where like I see all the fires that I want to fight, and like we're doing great. Like from outside, everything's going well, and like we're actually doing a good job. But like no longer is fundraising like emotional, where it like makes me not sleep at night anymore, or like it's exhausting. I actually slept like a baby. It's more when I look at the business, I'm like, oh, we got to fix all these problems. Like here are all the opportunities. That's where I get more exhausted now. But
Yeah, and that's something that I've always struggled with myself and some other founders is just the context shifting of, going into fundraising mode, which is a full-time job, versus back into firefighting mode. Any tips that you found over the years of kind of making that context shift a little bit easier?
I think it depends on the stage of the company. We were a wonderful setup at Orita. So like I'm go to market, but I'm like an inch deep, mile wide, right? Like I'm nobody's dream VP of sales or CMO or CRO or chief product officer or chief partnership, but I'm like pretty good at all, and I move very quickly. And in contrast, my co-founder, well, I have 2 co-founders, but one in particular who like I went out and like we would be in every single fundraising meeting together. DB is like a Harvard PhD in neuro, is like a badass machine learning engineer, data scientist. Our other co-founder, Zach, is like a better machine learning engineer. And so what we did this time is we literally told our team, like our leadership team, we were going to be out of the business for a month or 2 and just run the business. And now we would check in and we would do stuff. But it was actually like wonderful, because all the things that it was like come to DB or come to Aaron, they just like, the team that we hired is awesome. I think it was just like, guys, you got to solve it. And a couple of things that they weren't solving that we were needed for, we would do. But otherwise it's just like, hey, why isn't this done yet? And they're like, we're waiting for you. It's like, assume we don't exist, right? And so I actually think creating that period where you're like truly like you're available, but like it's as if you're on PTO, where it's like everybody knows they can reach out to you if they really need you, but they're hesitant to, is helpful. The framing I give to every single company I advise is like, you don't think you can leave the business, but if at the end of 3 months you come back and you've raised X, $1 million, $5 million, $50 million, whatever your number is, you're not going to have regretted anything that you did during those 3 months. That will be the most impactful thing you can do. And you're the only one in the company who can do it. So like literally just give up as much as you can to go fundraise, and don't fundraise until the period of time where like you can give up everything else.
Is learning to the team as well to know that they've got full autonomy, because they have to be the decision makers for the 3-month period.
Depends on the team. It can be really stressful. It depends on the person on the team too.
Another thing that I've struggled with and see that's very common is, fundraising. It's such an exerting effort. And once you hit the finish line of raising fund, hopefully, like that's just when the work begins. You actually have to execute now.
Yeah.
With the added pressure of, having a lot more stakeholders. So what are some of the tips that you've been able to put in place in your career just to make that transition and kind of best mediating your energy towards actually, wrapping up the fundraise to get to work?
Yeah. I think, by the way, this is very spicy. So if I start sweating a little bit, I'll like get week off afterwards.
We're doing hot ones meets entrepreneurs. I like it.
I'd be the worst guest on Hot Ones. I'd be like, too hot, done. And I'd like talk away. The number one thing you need to walk into fundraising with and the mentality you need to have is the goal is not to raise money. The goal is to return money. And what that means is like, it's fun and you get into it and you're competitive and you're like thinking about the terms and you're thinking about the people and you're getting all this like strategy around how to win fundraising. But really, if you raise more than $0 and you don't return the money to those people, you failed. And so I think for me, like the shift is like you probably, with very, very rare exception, right? If you're like this extraordinarily like fast growing company where people are throwing you money and you never need to touch the money, right? Like I don't know the whole story of Klaviyo, for example, but like a big partner of ours, I've heard it from enough different places where it's like they raised $25 million, but they never had to touch it, right? It was like they were such a rocket ship and it's such an incredible business that like if people are giving you money and you're giving up only a little control, but you gain all this like security, 10 times out of 10 do it. For the vast majority of companies, like you need to go in knowing that the goal is not to raise money. The goal is to give people a 10x or 100x or 1000x return on their money. And I think, and it probably depends on the psychology of the founder, but like that's a forcing function to be like, I'm not going to fuck around and ask somebody for money unless I'm like dead certain that I'm going to return it. The framing that has helped me is to walk into a pitch as if I had like a 10-page business plan, which nobody ever wants to see it. But like if I've thought through every angle of the business as well as I can with like doing the research I've done and everything, and if you were to be like, hey, Aaron, I will give you the $3 million you've asked for, but you need to execute exactly what's in this plan. Do I believe that I put forward the best possible plan I can put forward? And if the answer to that isn't yes, I shouldn't raise. That's how I can like at least feel good that if I fail, I've like given it my all. Does that make sense? Like I haven't like misled anybody or like tried to sell them a story. So
I love that. And it also just makes the pitch a lot easier to understand if everything is around that context.
hopefully it also like, dude, I mean, it can also backfire because you're just like, yeah, we're right. I've run the numbers. This is correct. And people are like, what about this? And you're like, no, you're wrong. And that is not a good recipe for pitching an investor.
Awesome, Aaron. So for our early stage founder audience, what would you say is something typical for how their storytelling should evolve from the pre-seed stage to seed to Series A? How should that look differently depending on the funding stage that they're in?
I think about why people are investing at different stages. So maybe a couple different frameworks. The first one is like, you raise money to de-risk a business. So in order to go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, so it could be pre-seed to seed or seed A or whatever, right? It's like you're raising money, you're de-risking the business, which means you earn the right to raise more capital. Again, we're not talking about like, is fundraising good or bad? Should you do it or not? But like, if you're going down the VC path, the goal of every single round is to de-risk. So what do you de-risk by? Team, traction. Traction is not like, does number go up? But it's like, does number go up? And is it because customers love you and they're sticking around and they're referring you? Product usage. Are people using the product? Is there any signal that they're actually like, they would fail without your existence? Like they'd be really pissed if you disappeared. Is your NPSI, right? Whatever metrics you want. Platform risk. Hey, there were a lot of companies at the end of 2024 that were working within the Shopify ecosystem, and Shopify changed one of their terms or one of their policies for the checkout flow. And something that used to be like a default check is no longer a default check. And it sounds really small, but it like crushed a couple of companies that had big layoffs like immediately after this change. So that'd be platform risk. Like you're building in this ecosystem, right? By the way, Shopify's change, it's not about is it good or bad? It's like, it's their right to do. And they believe that they were creating a better experience for merchants or for customers. It doesn't matter. But if you're wholly dependent on that, you have some risk, right? For example. And so I think the like understanding that you need to de-risk the business. Now you go stage by stage. At a pre-seed, don't have any traction, have an incredible story, have a good team, people will believe. The minute you start having numbers, right? Now all of a sudden people can be like, well, is the slope high? Is the slope low? Even if the number's like $500 a month, and then the next month you're at 600, they're like, well, why are you growing? You're like, we grew 20% month over month. And they're like, yeah, but you're only at $600. It's been 2 months. What's going on? And it's like at the earliest stages, it's actually easier Again, you're not trying to pull wool over somebody's eyes, but to tell a story. As soon as you start showing data, your data better be really good. At the seed stage, the bet is like team and TAM. And I was talking to this guy, to Jay, who's a VC at a fund called Infinity Ventures, which is an awesome fund. And this is his framing, and I love it. It's like team and TAM, right? Like total addressable market. Like, is there a big market, and do I truly believe in the team? At the A, you're investing in a business. Is it coin operated, right? Like if I put in $1, do I get $1.10 within a certain period of time? Do customers like me? Is it scaling? Do I have a team that's actually executing on it? Not just like founder-led sales. And so I know you're asking like, what is the story? But I think like underpinning all this is like, are you doing the things that people care about? And then you layer the story on top and you emphasize the things that matter in each round. It's like early on, it's vision. Second, it's like, hey, we've proven all these things. We know who our next set of hires are. We just need the capital to go hire them. After that, it's like, we actually hired, now we've gone from 2 salespeople to 20 and it's really working. We just need more money, right? It's like, those are the things that layer on.
And, to dive a little bit more into the specifics with one of your previous companies, can you share some examples of the metrics that you shared that were a lot more impactful in the pitch, like in your Series A raise versus seed stage?
At the seed stage, we have 15 customers and they absolutely love us. Go talk to them. They're like using the product all the time. So like for Orita, we actually raised on the back of like a pilot. We had 12 customers, 15 customers. And most investors will look at that and be like, you can't raise $3 million. These 15 customers are paying you like $100 a month each. Who cares? And I looked at it and I was like, they might be paying us $100 a month each. And like, I'm not going to go into like the depth of our business, but the value prop of Orita is like, we tell you who's engaged in your audience, your email marketer, SMS marketer, direct mail, who's engaged, who's not. If we do our job right, you make a lot more money. Like literally number goes up if we do our job right. And if we don't, you lose a lot of money. And so the framing and the metrics that matter to our customers, to the prospective investors was not, hey, we got 1,000 customers. It was like 15 customers. It wasn't we got $1 million revenue. It was like we $1,500 in revenue this month or $1,200, like nothing in the grand scheme of things. It was, if Orita was wrong, because those customers were relying on us to tell them who to email and who not to, they would make millions of dollars less if we screwed up, which means we might have mispriced the product, but they deeply trust us, right? If we say, hey, don't email Josh, and they do it, that's actually like a product usage metric that at the early stages is really compelling because you're talking to like enterprise brands. At the point it was like Made by Mary and Caraway and Italic, like in this ecosystem, like really good reference clients. And they were paying nothing, but they were using the product and like changing the fundamentals of their business. Series B company, as an advisor to a company called Loop Returns, where I ended up joining full-time afterwards, like returns and exchanges for the Shopify ecosystem. And like I was whatever the smallest possible part of being an advisor during a fundraise is, right? So like the founder, the team, the whatever. The metric that to me led the day for the Series B raise was their net revenue retention. So it was, I don't remember what exactly it was, but let's say that they had gone from like 2 million in sales to 10 million in sales, but their net revenue retention was 120% or 130, whatever it was at the time. And what that metric tells you is like, if a customer is paying me in 1 year, are they paying me more or less in the next year? If it's 100% NRR, they're paying you exactly the same as last year. If it's 110%, they're paying you 10% more, 120%, they're paying you 20% more. And across a very big book of business, if that number is high, that actually covers everything. It covers, do customers like you? Are they willing to pay you for your product? Right? Like all that is embedded in that. And that was like the shining star metric. There were other metrics like, yeah, we won customers against like in competition against like platform, like competitor A and competitor B. Here are the big brands we won. It's here's our ACV, like how much are people paying us on a yearly basis? That's going up over time. We're speeding up how many companies we're turning on every day. But all that doesn't mean anything if like all those customers are going to fire you in 6 months. But literally the fact that they're not only going to stick around but pay you more means that it's very easy to start projecting value. So like tangibly, that is the metric that like when we go out to raise again as Orita, like we're absolutely focused on that. It is like the metric that tells you the full story of the business as far as I'm concerned.
I'm curious to dive a little bit deeper into your current business. Like what initiatives or product features are you doing to drive that metric?
Now I'm gonna eat. It's too good. I gotta eat this. What initiatives are we doing to drive NRR? There's a couple. On the human capital side, we've started growing our customer success team. So director of customer success just started. We've got 2 other incredible teammates in that org. And we hired a guy who is used to run a retention marketing agency. So he has helped brands with their growth of their retained audiences. And so customers went from the self-serve model that just kind of worked in the background. They kind of trust it. So now we're charging them more because the results are more impactful. But then it's when you charge people nothing, they're not going to inspect. When you charge them infinity dollars, they're going to inspect a lot, right? So it's we're moving closer up, we're moving up market because the results are there. And we think we've earned it. And so it is, do customers understand it? Do they have a team that they trust? Does our team go deep into their business and help them think about strategy? So that's one on that side. Parallel to that is we actually, partnerships are a huge part of our business. So our partnerships team is growing. We work with a ton of top email marketing agencies, growth agencies. I think when we started the business, we thought people would think we were competitive, but we're really not. We're the secret code, right? The cheat sheet for a lot of these agencies, because we are good at one thing and one thing only, which is machine learning and understanding your customer details. We're not your email strategy team. We're not your creative team. We're just give us a big set of data and we'll tell you who to email and who not to, right? To dumb it down. So it's there's a human capital side. And then on the product side, it's we're rolling out as many new products as we can, but not I think what a lot of companies do is a lot of navel gazing, which is oh, I think the product, we should have a dashboard. Oh, we should do these other things. Ours is 90% of our roadmap is truly customer-led or partner-led, where they're banging down our doors and can you please do this? And then we're tell us why, right? We're really pushing and trying to understand what they want. So I think it's just a combination of trying to build something that people want and then really making sure they understand the value prop and just fill above and beyond as much as possible. That'll get people to stick around, expand their contracts. But you got to earn it. You know what I mean? The worst type of business to be in is one that's growing really quickly, but it's actually a leaky bucket. And all those customers are going to disappear. Then you need to acquire them again. You're building the business the wrong way.
Totally agree. I don't think you're on the human capital side that you're investing in your customer success team. And I'm in the customer success space myself.
Yeah.
Big believer in seeing it as a revenue driver and huge for retention instead of just looking at it as a cost center.
My perspective on this is if we become a public company, in any given year, 90% of our revenue is going to be from customers that we've retained. And probably more than that. I'm very lazy, but I'm it's got to be at least that, right? Maybe it's 98%. Even as we keep growing, it's going to continue to be from existing customers. So why are we optimized for the top? Anything we do to optimize for not that is a miss. It's if customers aren't going to stick around and be extremely excited to stick around, we've done something wrong. Nothing else should matter as far as I'm concerned.
Totally agree. And to your earlier point, it should be, if the product is something that's painful for them not to have, then you've hit your product market fit and you got something special.
Yeah.
Aaron, I'd love to dive into round 2 of Empanadas with you. How's the spice levels going?
When you say round 2, I'm just crushing them. I'm almost done.
I need to catch up. You've been doing most of the talking. I'm still behind you.
I know I'm supposed to go slowly. They eat very fast.
Awesome. So Aaron, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the more uncomfortable topics around fundraising. Can you share an experience of just the emotional preparation that you go through to deal with that level of rejection? And what are maybe some emotional preparation steps that some founders overlook before they go into their fundraising journey?
I think probably the most important thing is to realize that your priority isn't their priority. And not only are you not your business, which is general, good thing for humans to think about. It's my job is not me, right? Identity, yada, yada. I'm sure everybody who's a founder has gone through thinks that it is. And fourth company, I still feel that way. So it's very difficult. Separating the success or failure of a fundraise, I think from you is important. I do think if you are the founder or you're the CEO who's running the fundraise, your job is to get money into the business. So it is okay to say hey, I failed at a fundraise or I succeeded at a fundraise, right? It's not I'm a failure as a person or success as a person, but Um, the your priority, not the other person's priority. I'm like, to me is there's some funds that are just like, if you talk to somebody on the wrong day or you talk to the wrong person at the fund, like you're shit out of luck, right? If you had a bad day, your kid's sick, whatever it is, you're distracted, you're going meeting to meeting and you're just like tired, you misspoke about something, too bad, right? And so like, I think the hard part about fundraising psychologically is like, you can know something to be true. And even if you are correct and it is true and you are the perfect fit for this fund and you hit all their theses and you've got all the metrics, they still may say no. And they may say no because of all these other externalities, like, it's two humans conversing, or there's a very senior partner who had a bad day who's not actually going to be the person who you're ever going to talk to again, but she's like, sorry, no deal, right? Or the fund is not running out of money, but there's like 6 deals competing at the same time. And like, even if you're the best deal, they're further with the other ones. There's like, sorry, we can't spend the time on it. So I think like, just realize that it doesn't matter how great you do, you still make it just everybody saying no. I think the harder thing for me at this stage is when I think people say no for the wrong reason, right? It's like good outcome, bad process bugs the shit out of me. Like I used to play a lot of poker and I would love to have, like I always felt bad when I like won a hand that I didn't deserve to win. And like, I would like feel good about like a good process, bad outcome, but then I'm like, wait, I've lost money. It's like, it's dumb, right? Sometimes there's like, you literally have answered the question that they're asking, but they're not getting it. The hard part as the founder is to be like, well, it's your fault because you didn't communicate in a way that like the goal isn't for you to have the answer, but it's for that person to hear it. For us, like a couple funds during one of our fundraisers was like, yeah, well, your pricing's too low. And it's like, well, pricing was too low, but if you look at our last 30 customers we signed, the pricing was like on the money of literally the dollar amount that you're telling us we should be able to hit. And we did that within a couple months with like no engineers building new products. Like imagine once we have resources, like how good, like how impactful we must be to be able to like have our price go up and people not leave us. Like, wow, we must be driving a lot of value. But they saw in a chart somewhere that it was low and they're just like, they're fixated on the fact that it was low. It's your fault for having to show them the chart or like display the information poorly. But I think that is still like psychologically the one where I get really frustrated. It's candidly helpful to have DB with me because I can text him afterwards. Yes, sir. Like, it said whatever it was. He texted me after one response. He's like, they're literally saying no for the easiest thing for us to fix, which is like something about some model thing. And I was like, yeah, that's what they wrote. But then you just have to realize that actually that's not what they're saying no to. There's probably 50 other things. They're just like grabbing the one thing. And so again, now you have to be introspective, which is the hard part. Be like, well, what could I have done better? Why didn't we resonate with them? I don't know, man. I'm rambling. This is a very emotional topic for me. I think about fundraising way too much.
No, I fully know where you're coming from. I'd love to hear maybe some other stories of times where you've heard that initial no, and to your point, maybe it was like the outcome wasn't what you're looking for. I mean, the process was right though, and how you're maybe able to adjust or convince the investor's perspective based off of metrics that you had behind the scenes, or giving them more context around the whole story.
Yeah, it is extraordinarily rare to be able to turn around an investor who said no. It's not like no and then here's. In a recent raise, a fund that has known us for a long time said no. And it was one of those where they said no for reason X. And they're like a friend and they jumped on a call to walk through. And I was like, look, here's like reasons A, B, and C are the reasons to say no, but reason X is not the right reason. Here's like literally my proof. And there wasn't a like, oh, let's reassess. There was like, hey, really appreciate all your work. Like good luck in the round. So if somebody gets to a no, like think about the job of a VC. It's like they see 1,000 companies a year. Maybe they see like 10,000 in their firm and 1,000 and they're going to write like 10 checks. So like even getting to a meeting is hard and then getting to a third meeting. And then even at that point, they're like, I only have 10 checks I can write this year. Or for some firms and like some partners, like 2 checks. You're not competing with who they're looking at today. You're competing with every other possible future deal. You've got to be awesome and like take every box that they care about. So I think like, I think that's always, I don't know, man, that's a hard one. I think if you like, the right way to take it is not, I can go back and win that fund, but the right way to take it, I think, is be like, okay, cool. Josh said no. Do whatever you can to understand what Josh said no. Be like, hey, that's a BS reason why you said no. Give me the real reason. Like, do that work, right? Or just reflect on it. Or if you had somebody else in the room, ask them what they saw. Or if you know a friend at the firm, be like, can you please back channel? Like, I want to get better. And if by the next pitch meeting, whether it's in 15 minutes or the next day, you haven't improved something, then you're screwing up your fundraise. And so I think the onus is on the founder to be like, assume everything. Like, I come out with a pitch and assume I'm wrong and just keep improving. I think that'll help keep you sane a little bit. It'll make you feel like you're doing something useful, but it's actually, like, to me, also the right process. There's one time where I re-won somebody who had said no. It was for Modify. So it was my watch company in like late 2012 or early 2013. And this fund out in New York said no. And I was like, hey, great, thank you. They spent a lot of time with us. I was like, you guys have invested in a lot of other consumer brands. I'd love your feedback. And it wasn't like a repitch. I was like, dude, just give me feedback. And I called. This guy, Ben, picks up. And I go, hey. He goes, hey. He goes, tell me what you guys do. And I realized he literally didn't remember anything about our company, which is probably like a bad sign for them as an investor. And, I'd like not pitch them again. So let's put this to the side. And I was like, oh, we are blah, blah, blah. And like, I walked through the whole pitch. He literally put me on hold for 10 minutes. And this was like, I didn't have AirPods or like wired headphones. I was walking around my office with the phone to my ear. And the team's looking at me and I'm like, I put on mute. I was like, I think I'm on hold. I don't know. And the guy came back, non-exaggeration, 10 minutes later, which is the longest I've, held for anything. And he's like, great, we're in for 100K. And I was like, cool, let me send through the paperwork. Give me the day. It was so weird. That's never going to happen again. I don't understand why it happened that time, but
All right. There's one to memory loss. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, Aaron. Can you share a little more about maybe some of those unspoken power dynamics that go on in those investor meetings that maybe some earlier founders might miss that you've come to learn?
Power dynamics. It's a good question. They have the money. You don't. You're going to them for something. The more you can make it clear that they actually should be so lucky to work with you, the better. Right? But you can't lie. You can't make it up. You can't be like, well, I got a term sheet. Or like, everybody else sniff it out. Don't be a jerk. Like, don't lie. You're trying to build a long-term, like, anybody who gives you money is a long-term partner. It's like, never, ever, ever start up a lie. The only way to gain the power, which is such a weird, like, I understand the framing. Like, I don't think that's, I don't know. Like, but the way to like gain that power or to make sure that like they listen is maybe a better way, is to, one, build like a super compelling business. Great. Two, have that super compelling story with the vision and the data points and the yada, yada, yada. Fine, obviously. But then three, run a proper process. So if you and I are on a call right now and you go, great, what are the next steps, right? And let's say you're running Josh's fund or whatever, Empanada Capital. And I'm like, well, like, talking to about 15 other funds right now. It's going well. We're on like second meetings with a few. I've got a bunch of lined up. And you go, okay. And like, now I'm credible, right? Like, I've got a lot of other people around the hoop. And you're like, can we meet tomorrow? And if I'm like, I'd love to, but like, I literally can't. I can do like 9 p.m. if you want to. I've got like a bunch of pitches and I've got customer calls all day. And again, you're not lying, but it's actually credible because you've built a process. You're not like pulling wool over anybody's eyes or like getting power by being a jerk or putting your legs up on a desk or like doing power moves. You're literally structuring a process to make it clear that like your job is to understand all the funds and to get in front of everybody who could give you capital, to help them understand your business. That is like your job is to make them understand the business, where you're going, whatever, but also that like you're vetting them and they're not the only choice you have. So at the minute that they're excited about the business, you get to like, now you get to have a real negotiation, right? Yeah. Anyway, that to me is like the only way to do it. There's so much like bullshit you could use. You'd be like, hey, we have a deadline of this day. Just like, don't lie. It is a long-term relationship. Like, earn the trust and it's not power, like earn the respect, and then let people like opt in or opt out because they're excited about the business. Like, put your best foot forward to a lot of people and you'll figure that out.
Yeah. How about from the inverse side of like investors putting some of those BS dynamics in here, are there any kind of red flags to look out for from investors that just show that it wouldn't be a good long-term partnership?
I think it's probably depends on who you are as a founder. For me, I like care deeply about like the personal side of things. Like I pick up the phone. My team hates me. I call everybody all the time. Like I like going for walks. I have a bad back. I'm literally sitting for this meeting because I'm eating lunch, but otherwise it'd be a standing meeting. Or, you know what I mean? Um, the if the founder doesn't communicate in a way that works for you, and you guys can't have a real conversation, be very careful. It's not that they're a bad person or a bad investor or sorry, not the founder, the investor, or like a bad anything. It's just like they may not be the right fit for you. Like it is truly a long-term relationship. So make sure that you enjoy spending time with the person. Make sure that like you are able to debate and make the business better, right? Because that is the goal. The goal is not for you to be right or wrong. The goal is like the business to be successful. Some red flags I have are like when a fund says, great, let me introduce some customers or something, and then they go dark. That's actually like a really big signal to me that they're full of shit. It's like, are you doing it or not? If you're not, don't say you're going to do something. Like, do the thing or don't. And for me, it's weird because like I advise a lot of companies in fundraising, like informally at this point. I just like will help and I'll make intros. I'm like, I love the idea of connecting, like being a connector of good people. And if there's like a really compelling founder and investor is looking in that space, like that's really joyful for me, right? Because like creating the opportunity and then maybe it turns into a business and then maybe there's jobs created. And I don't know, like this is it's enjoyable, right? For whatever reasons, it's enjoyable. But I stop referring to funds where I see that they like don't follow up on the things that they say they're going to do or they're late. You know, the funds who like pull your data room and then are quiet for 3 weeks. It's just like they're just being rude. Like it's very inconsiderate. It's like, you know, the dark way to look at it is the job of a VC is to waste a founder's time. I've had many funds and an accelerator went through like, tell me that. Now, like, I don't think that's a human's like intent, but literally if they're going to look at thousands of companies and they're going to choose 10, like you are spending your time to teach somebody else something new. So like really try to do a give and take where you get something out of them, insight, not money, right? Like insights, a customer intro, and just be wary of the people who like sell you, but don't actually follow up. Like, I don't think you want to be in business with those folks. I think it becomes very obvious very quickly.
Totally. Aaron, I'm curious, just with your fundraising journey, what's maybe one strongly held belief that you have that, you know, the majority of founders would disagree with?
Oh man. I think more meetings is better. I think everybody wants to get done with fundraising. And it probably depends on your stage of company, but at the early stage, I actually think fundraising is the best business development strategy you can have. So let me caveat this by saying this is relevant for B2B businesses. So not like a generic B2C company where you're like trying to turn on 1 million users, but you're trying to get like 10 customers, 100 customers, 1,000 customers. I would stack as many investor meetings as possible with people who can literally write $1,000 check and get out of every meeting and be like, hey, Josh, great chat. And you're engaged, right? Assuming you've got like a good business. It's like, hey, the best thing you can do to figure us out, intro us to a prospect. They'll see what we do. And the point isn't that you're going to close that prospect, but the point is like, they're not your pipeline for a month, a quarter, a year, right? And so I think a lot of people are like, fundraising, stressful, I don't want to do it. To me, I'm like, no. Like you can learn so much in fundraising. You can literally build your pipeline if you do it the right way. Don't fundraise in order to do that, but it is like this like beautiful exhaust that can happen. And like you also like good investors are smarter than you, have seen more than you, have like understood this stage of business 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. It's like you have so much to learn. So like really lean into the learnings you can get from them. If like you walk out of a meeting, you didn't learn anything, like shame on you is maybe that sort of thing.
Have you ever structured just the schedule of VC firms you're going to meet with and kind of be the ones that likely know first, just to capture learnings before targeting the better prospects?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know a lot of people who'll be like, cool, list out your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or A, B, and C firms, and do 5 of the C's and then something. The one mistake I made in that regard is like doing 5 a day for like 2 weeks for first meetings. The reason that's bad like forget the like ranking. The reason that's bad is like you don't give yourself time to learn and figure out what's broken with your pitch. Okay. So that's a very clear black and white mistake. I think if you need to practice your pitch, practice with other founders, and then like, sure, do some like tiering of people, and like, sure, if you have like the absolute number one that you want to go to, wait until they're like your 5th or 10th pitch type of thing. The risk you run with trying to be too cute about this is like, if you get very far down the path with some funds, and the funds you really want to talk to are just getting going, but the funds you're far down the path with give you a term sheet, that term sheet's going to expire. They're not going to like say, take 2 months, go meet with your tier 1 funds. They're like, hey, we are convicted. We want to invest in you. Sign now, type of thing. And so, I don't know. I get the philosophy. I just like, I don't want to be too cute about that in general is my take. Wait a couple, but don't wait too long. Like bring in the good people. Like good is defined by you, not like the big names, but who do you want to like partner with? Like who's a human you want to work with pretty early.
Awesome, Aaron. Any books recently that really captured your attention or that you recommend to the audience?
I mean, I'm reading Harry Potter with my 8-year-old, so I can't recommend that enough. I started reading a book by the founder of Waze, which is pretty fun, and I'm blanking on the name. I don't know. I used to be such a good reader. I've gotten so lazy. I have started watching Detroiters on Netflix, which brings me unlimited joy. So I'll pretend that's a book. But Tim Robinson gets me. So yeah, sorry I don't have a more intellectual answer for you. I could tell you like some random history books, like anything by David Halberstam, if anybody's interested. JFK, The Best and the Brightest was the best book I've ever read. But nothing recent.
We'll take Harry Potter.
Harry Potter counts.
Awesome, Aaron. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to meet with us, and I got some great insights from this.
Thank you.
Aaron, where can people find you online?
I'm pretty lazy these days. So LinkedIn, I like to joke, is my favorite social network. My wife works in Meta, but I'm just like, I don't use anything else. So yeah, LinkedIn or the company website is Orita, Orita.ai. I don't know. That's everything right now for me. So that's the focus.
Perfect. Aaron, thanks again for dealing with the spice levels. You
good.
Made it. You survived.
I did it. Thank you again.
Really appreciate it. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Bye.